Okay, hi guys. This is Ava
Gianna.
and we are your older sisters.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to talk about what we're going to be doing in this first episode. And I think we're mostly going to talk about college and advice. Um what else do you
We
think?
really wanted to start this for people who never really had that experience, like going into school and not having older people to really ask. That was the case for myself. I never really had anyone to talk about this with. So I feel like having someone to look at and having someone to look up to ask questions to will be really helpful.
And I think we both, or at least for me, I went through a period where I felt as if um I wasn't prepared enough.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I regretted that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that there's a lot of things that teachers and adults really don't.
Cover.
Yeah, they don't really cover everything. And I think that having two students to, ask questions about who have honestly been doing pretty well with the college experience, like we got everything done really early. We've heard back from a ton of schools already, gotten money from a lot of schools. So having someone to ask questions about that for might be really helpful to some students.
Yeah, for sure. And something I feel like we don't talk about enough is how easy the college process is. I think it's made to seem a little bit more difficult than it is, and that's very scary. Um, Especially if like someone isn't prepared. So we want to make sure that like if you have any questions, we cover them and talk about them at a more easier, not not as challenging way. That makes sense.
Yeah, going into depth on certain things, I feel, is like a big issue. Okay, so something that I would like to get into in depth with is what classes that I really enjoyed and I think are really helpful for the college experience. Something that I would love to talk about is AP English. I think I think that that was one class that really teaches you how to write and like dig way deeper into pieces of literature that you need to it's going to prepare you for college. And I feel like that falls into par with science research, which is also the same thing in a scientific way. You're digging into these scientific pieces of literature, which you also need to dig into deep into, as well as like being able to write a PhD, like a thesis paper, something along those lines, which I feel could also be really helpful for college. And I feel like having those two background classes and then going into these, these applications where you have to write essays on all these different things, supplements that you never would even imagine writing about. For example, whatchamacallit, religious schools, like Catholic institutions, they'll have you writing about like gospel quotes. Like who would have thought you ever need to write about something like that?
Yeah.
But I feel like taking these classes, specifically AP English, it has you read all these like archaic, pieces of literature. Being able to read that and interpret it and then writing these supplements, I feel was actually one of the most helpful courses.
And I think taking AP English, it's helped with my writing a lot.
Yeah, 100%.
And Miss Bayer helps so much.
Yeah.
And I just recommend her as a teacher and that class in general because coming into it, I was expecting a very tough course because I think my sister said not to take AP English, actually. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to like test my learning abilities and I'm just going to go for it. And I did. And I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I would say that the workload is quite rigorous. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot, and you definitely you work for your grade.
For sure.
But I would say that it's one of the classes that has paid off the most. So I would recommend that, like, for the underclassmen who are, below junior year, if you haven't thought about taking AP English, I definitely would recommend that, just because I feel that that is the class that has prepared me the most for these college essays and for college in general.
And I think the supplements. I was gonna say something about college. Oh, so there's this. Also, there's this course in summer, and so the summer of junior year leading into senior year, you have to write your personal essay for college, and I was so stressed about it. Like that's all I thought about, and it was like coming close to the end of summer of, as I was a junior, I was going into senior year. And I was stressed because I had no idea what to write about and like just topics in general. And then I took this like course in the summer and I finished my essay and it was like a week and Mr. Bach, is it Bach?
Yeah.
He does it with another teacher and it helped so much.
I would actually
Did you go to that?
Yeah, we were in it together.
Oh, right.
Silly goose. Bach was one of the most helpful teachers that I've ever had a meeting with.
I remember we even asked him, we were like, are you a teacher for senior?
I've never met him before, and I think that if you have any questions about anything you're writing about, definitely like reach out to him because I guarantee you he would be more than willing to help. Like for Ava and I we both had, 2 topics that we really wanted to write about, but we did not how to,
we didn't know which one to choose and we didn't know how to put them together.
Exactly. And he just, for everyone who was in this course, he thought of this like whole outline and like literally made it sound perfect. And I have helped so many people with their college essays because I used his tactics and it works so well. And he makes it sound like so professional almost and telling your own life story, which is also really important.
So yeah, that's something I recommend, especially, people who already know their topic, I would still go because it's just, it opens your mind to like new, I don't know, ways to create the story and make it as personal and like in depth and unique as it can.
And I think that like your college essay really does need to be true to who you are, opposed to trying to mimic something that isn't you. You want to make it sound personal. You want to make it sound like it's your own. You don't want to write some like prestigious essay. You want it to be something that's about you. And I feel that with Mr. Bach, he really is able to incorporate all of those factors.
So for a while, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And it's kind of hard when you're, 15 and or you're 16. It's like you're just figuring out yourself. And it's like you have to figure out what you want to do when you're older. Or at least that's what it seems like. There's that pressure to like figure something out. But I disagree with that. I think that if you know what you want to do, that's great. That's amazing. But there's a lot of people who don't, and I always felt this pressure to know what I wanted to do, and I just couldn't find that hobby that I liked. And so I applied everywhere undecided, and the more I talked about it with, I think, my sister, like, it's so normal to change your major in college, and it's like you have like 22-year-olds and they still don't know what they want to do.
I feel like a lot of people put that pressure amongst you being like, oh, you need to know what you're doing, or like your first or after your first year, like going into your second year, you need to know like some sort of guideline. But I feel that is not,
That's
the
not
quite
realistic.
truth. Yes. I do think that like throughout high school, you should try like whatever you think that you like. Like if that's art, take art classes. If that's science, maybe apply to science research. If you like law, take our criminal law classes. Like, we are so lucky within the school that we offer all these different majors. For example, I was so passionate about like engineering and specifically biomedical, like looking at genes and looking at all these different ways to maybe cure genetic diseases such as, maybe we can look at like autism or Down syndrome, things like that. And I was so passionate about it. So I joined an engineering class, which was more so on the like mechanical side, but still had the same aspects of, breaking down things and building them back up, looking for resolutions, etc. But when I started looking into, the scientific side and I started completing research plans and, going through with research, I decided that wasn't for me. And I looked at what I really liked the most, and it happened to be law, which is completely different. But it's something that I'm so passionate about, being an attorney, fighting for someone that really deserves something but isn't getting that, that treatment. I think that's really important.
And I think that the amount of clubs that we have, take advantage of it because it will not only help you like on your resume, it looks very good when you're involved in school things after school, but it'll also open your mind to, something that you can do when you're older. Yeah. And I feel like that's very
I agree.
Thing.
Like, honestly, who would have thought that Ava and I would be sitting here talking to you about, you know, what's going to happen in your future
Yeah,
life?
we heard about Radio Club and we were like, wow, let's tune in.
Yeah, literally.
And we did, and it's really good.
Yeah. And that's another thing, like, another thing along with, like, majors, my uncle was someone who went into college, like, really passionate about medicine and hated it and, like, wasted so much money, and then went into psychiatry. And that was something that also scared me because I was like, well, I don't want to waste money if I'm going to school for one thing and then I hate it. So I also felt that pressure, and not growing up with someone like, you know, my parents who weren't really involved in college, and like having no older siblings, I wasn't really like, you know, I wasn't guided properly. I was guided properly. Like, my parents gave me so much support, but when it came to choosing what I was doing, I never like knew what I wanted to be. And that's why I found that out for myself, which I think is really important. Finding something that you love, not what other people want you to do, but what you really like.
Yeah, I feel like I was lucky enough to have an older sister and brother that you know, talked to me about that. And the more I talked to Gianna about it, I realized that like some people don't have that advice that their older siblings, you know, went through. And high school is a lot different now than than a while ago. So I think that advice from your older siblings are really beneficial. And when you don't have that, it can be harder, which is why I feel like we can be that outlet, and any questions that anyone has, we can answer, because we're almost done with that high school process.
Yeah.
So the further this podcast goes, I think that we're going to start interviewing people who have different job backgrounds, and within the school and outside of the school. And I think that it's important to hear their experience through college, and especially now. And
I know that, like, alongside having all these different careers within the school itself, all of these adults have different, you know, pathways that brought them through high school. I know an abundance of teachers who have had, like, you know, very difficult years throughout high school. And I know teachers who have, like, thrived through it. And I feel like for students to hear, you know, people's different perspectives, that, you know, if you're struggling with one period of time and maybe you hate a class you're taking, maybe you just don't like your sophomore year of high school, it might be good to have someone who's related to that speak upon that.
It could also help you connect with the teachers when you hear about their personal life more.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel that for this podcast, we kind of just want to be those ears for everyone who isn't like exactly speaking out to people. Like, if you have questions about something, if you want to know like a background on something, if you need information on how to do something, like whatever the case may be, like I feel like we can be that outlet, which is what I wish I had when I was an underclassman.
You're listening to Your Older Sisters podcast.
And we'll be back in 1 minute. Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, so something that I think is the most important thing to have constant throughout high school is a really good balanced life. And I feel like both Ava and I have kind of mastered that lifestyle, being able to work really hard in school, work outside of school, have an outside of school sport, and then also like participate and have a social life. So for me, I worked really hard throughout school. I also am a waitress at a restaurant, and I also do dance competitively, which is, you know, a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours, and it's alongside waitressing, which is also a lot of hours, which is why that's mainly something that I do on the weekends. And then also, we both are able to always kind of like go out with our friends, have fun, also have that social aspect of life, which I feel is also very important. You want to be able to communicate with people. You want people to be there for you if you're having issues with anything, and vice versa. You want to be there for people if they're having issues with anything. And I feel like going out with your friends, you know, having girls' nights, we love to do that. Playing board games, like doing all that type of stuff. Like, it's a good way to just like bring back that like, you know, childhood like memories, and just like have a good time with your friends, considering like this is your last year of high school. Like, then you go into the adult life. So I feel like that's something that's really important.
And I think that balance might be a little intimidating, because it's like after school, I am so mentally drained.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I just want to go to bed. But if you have like a group of people who you know you could talk to, and you know who you can hang out with, I think that like balancing that is good because it kind of lowers the stress levels of school because it kind of temporarily takes your mind out of school for a little.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I know that for me, I am so drained throughout the week, like Ava had mentioned. Like, after school, I come home and I go to dance every day, and it's just draining. Like, there's days where I don't want to go. As much as I love it, like, there are days where I just want to be home and do nothing.
Because for you, it's like after you're leaving school,
Going home,
you're
taking
going
a nap.
home, you have dance,
Take a nap.
and then you have to make time for your friends.
Yes.
So how do you think, like, when do you think you, like, were able to balance everything?
So I don't know exactly how I balance everything because I just feel like there's so many more hours in the day than there really are. I go home from school. I try to do a little bit of homework, and senior year there is quite amount of there's a decent amount of homework.
Because a lot of people say that junior year is the hardest. I disagree with that.
Yes, I think that senior year is the hardest.
The beginning of senior year.
Yeah, so I get home, I do some work, and then I go to dance until 10 o'clock. Like, I get home at 10 o'clock, and then I'm even more drained. But then I get home, I eat my dinner at 10 o'clock, and I shower, and then I'm, like, wide awake. And I'm like, okay, well, this is the time where I can, communicate with my friends, see how they're doing, see how their day was, talk to them about life. So that's, like, my weekdays. On the weekends, usually in the daytime, I will, pick up a waitressing shift or at night, depending on what I'm feeling. And then on weekend nights, we will all, our friend group will go out, we'll hang out, and, we get to do, all that socializing just in person over the media,
and
vice versa.
I think Sundays are, the catch-up days.
Yes.
Where you do your work.
Refresh day.
You prepare for Monday. You get everything together, and I think that's a good way to balance everything.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I feel like use Sundays as a day to, just,
focus
debrief.
On yourself.
Yeah, debrief. Yeah. Study for those tests you have the upcoming week. Don't slack. I know that my junior year personally, I was like, all right, school's flying, it's flying by. I don't need to study. I was one of those kids who naturally was able to just do well on tests. Well, that changed. Now I need to put that work into it. Now I need to study. Sundays, I'm like, okay, I have this test, this test, this test. I'm just going to study all night long. And that's exactly what I did last night.
And in a way, it's at first slacking seems so easy and missing an assignment, it's okay, I'll make it up. But when it adds up, it's just even harder. So it's you want to make sure you're on top of everything. You're organized, you know what to do. I have notes on my computer on my laptop.
Oh my God, they should sponsor Ava.
I use it all the time because it helps me organize my mind because my mind is filled with so many dates and I need to put them down or else I forget something or I'm stressed.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so easy to just get off guard when you're doing work to take a break and then just not go back to it. Or at least for me, that's what I do. TikTok, terrible. All I want to do is just scroll through it. Yeah, literally procrastinating. And honestly, the anticipation with getting these college letters every night, between that and not wanting to do work all the time, it's just there's that constant I don't want to do this factor. It's just I just want to slack off, but you can't you cannot slack off.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I learned from my junior year. And honestly, if I have any recommendations, take the harder classes junior year. You do want a relaxing senior year, which I feel Ava and I both do not have. But I
feel like we kind of made that mistake.
Yes. And if I could go back in time, I would definitely, not be taking all AP courses. Definitely would not have taken calc because that is a no-go for me. But I would say, give your mind a break because, you need to or, you're literally going to go crazy. There was a period of time when I was applying to colleges. I was submitting my thesis paper for science research. We had first quarter ending, so all of the grades were being finalized. The catch-up work for that was insane, minus, everyone's getting sick because the weather's changing. That period of time, that, early November period, I actually thought my brain was going to explode.
And I think it was, after COVID where I was I have to really catch up on everything because I didn't realize how much I slacked. I wasn't in any clubs. I, was in, harder classes, but I could have done better in those
Right.
classes.
Yeah.
And so junior year, I was like, okay, I need to get my act together and I need to start involving myself in things. And it makes you feel good when you are involved because
it does.
It breaks the day up even more. And it's the best feeling when you think that you're accomplishing something, because, you know, you need that
push, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it was for me, but junior year, I was taking classes where I was flying by them. Like, it was pretty, like, I was fine. I was doing fine. And I honestly just thought, like, senior year was going to be a breeze. Everyone was saying senior year is so easy. I did not feel like that. I felt that it was a lot harder. And I don't even know what it was that, like, really pushed me and was like, you need to, like, get your act together. Like, you need to get this done. You're applying to colleges. And my thought process was, no college is going to accept me. So I, like, Ava and I both overdid, like, extremely. Like, 20 schools for me. 16 for you?
A little too much. I think I regretted doing as many schools as I did.
Yeah, I do. I do, in fact, regret that 100%. Yeah, so I just feel like push yourself, but don't over push yourself. Like, I know that there's a lot of things junior year, like, your whole life is changing. I feel like as people, you just, like, mature more junior year. And, like, there might be some setbacks, but the outcome is so much greater than that. And, like, you just really need to get through that wave.
And I think junior year, in a way, just prepared me for senior year.
Yep.
Because there was just a lot of things I had to catch up on. And being able to enter senior year with, you know, no worries from the prior year, I felt a lot better, you know, coming into senior year.
Like, I know that in the middle school they say, oh, we don't prepare you for high school. Like, high school is so much different. It's really not. Like, I do not think that the high school is at all different than the middle school, like, the ways. If anything, I feel that your junior and senior year are, like, where you feel more of a switch. I feel like your freshman year, it's so lackadays.
It's like the awkward years. It's like
so
you're trying
awkward.
to figure out yourself. You're trying to find a group of friends to fit into.
Yeah.
So that's hard. I'm not going to lie.
And honestly, girls can be mean.
Yeah.
Girls can be mean. Girls can create a lot of drama, especially for underclassmen. And I feel like that's kind of where people fit in with their freshman year.
Yeah. But you'll figure it out. Like, everyone has figured out, you know, who their core group is. And, you know, I wouldn't focus on that.
Yeah, I agree.
So college, I think if we also interview students who go to different colleges and explain like their experience so far, because I think it's very good to be able to talk to people who are experiencing college as of right now.
I also think that college is like where you're going to have the biggest change.
Right.
It's so different. You're in a different, most likely a different state, or at least a different area. You know, you don't really know anyone. You got to meet new friends. You need to like kind of repeat that whole freshman year process again. Fit in somewhere, find that group, and then it's going to be lackadays, and then your junior and senior year is going to kick in, and you're going to be like, all right, like I need to really just like push myself.
You also have to figure out like junior year where you want to go. And I think if we find people who kind of explain
their experiences within the school,
you'll be able to like figure out where you want to apply to easier.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like once again, like Ava had some older siblings who had applied to schools previously, and I was not like, I was not, like I didn't know many schools. I knew like my uncle had gone to Columbia and NYU and Syracuse, all New York schools. And honestly, I still don't really want to stay in New York. So I was like, well, that's not really helpful. So I'm just going to like apply elsewhere. I was applying to schools that I know like my friends have gone to that have loved, and like schools that I thought that maybe I would love, like the scenery, like, you know, things like that. Like, I feel like Ava and I all, like, we both applied to mainly schools that are, like, academically very challenging, but at the same time have that nice social aspect, which is the same thing as that balanced lifestyle that we were talking about previously.
Yeah. And I think that in having older friends last year
helped.
We were able to like hear about colleges I feel like I've never heard about before.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually.
There's a lot of colleges where I was like, wow, I didn't know there was a college there.
Yeah, and then you like look it up and you're like, oh, like this is kind of interesting.
And you're like, wow, like I would totally want to apply here. And then it just from there gets easier, and then it makes you wanna go, you know, to college and like look into it even more.
I agree with that. I definitely like was not expecting some schools to be like that. And then I would hear about these random names and I would be like, well, what is this? I've never even heard of this.
And then you figure out that like a lot of people that you know actually go there.
And you're like, oh, that's really awkward.
Like, wow, I didn't know you went here.
Yeah, it's like someone will be like, oh, I go to blah, 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 blah. And you're like, what? And they're like, yeah, so does so-and-so. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to look into this school.
And it's crazy because if you think about it, a lot of people who were from New York, obviously, they're like all over the place. And it's cool to think about, like, because different states do different things. And it's like, oh, like, how do you like it here in Florida? Like, how's Florida here? Like, how do you like living there?
Yeah.
Or Arizona, Mississippi.
Another thing is that one thing that I really took into consideration when applying to schools, if someone says they really like a school or vice versa, they really don't like a school, don't let that impact your application. Like if you feel that you would like that school and you feel that, you know, maybe you would fit in there, apply there. Like don't listen to what everyone else has to say, I feel.
Everyone has a different experience in high school, out of high school.
Yeah.
So you really can't make that judgment off of one person's experience.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like everyone I knew like had loved like Vanderbilt, like absolutely adored it. I toured it and immediately knew like this was not the place for me. Like despite everyone else's thoughts, even my own parents being like, wow, this is beautiful. Like this would be an amazing school. I just was not feeling it. I don't know. And that's okay. Like you, once again, like be your own person, be that own thing. Like you need to just like, you know, take your own self into consideration above others when it comes to your future.
Right. And you can obviously like listen to everyone's opinion about a school because it can alter.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like it could put some pros and cons to a school, but you know, visit the school, look into it more, have your own opinion, and then from there you can judge if you want to go to that school or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. And honestly, like, don't be afraid to apply to schools. Like, I know that a majority of our friend group applied to some of the same schools. So don't be afraid to, like, apply to schools with your friends. It might not be, you know, it might be a blessing in disguise having those few core people that maybe you could start school off with. You know, it gives you that starter off when meeting new friends, which I think is important.
Yeah, so this was our first episode. I'm so glad you guys are tuning in, whoever is tuning in. I would say ask some questions.
Yeah, we should make like an email or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you guys know us, Gianna and Ava. Gianna Calabro and Ava Ippoliti.
Yes.
So if you have any questions, email us, let us know, and we would be more than willing to answer them.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Yay!
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Do you know how to pause it? Gianna, it's recording.